All right, so today, let's head south, way south to the bottom of the world to Antarctica. It's a continent so vast and so pristine, it's practically an alien landscape. But, we're not just here for the scenery.
No, no.
This deep dive takes us through Antarctica's journey from scientific sanctuary to a potential geopolitical flashpoint.
Yeah, it's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? A place dedicated to peace and science, yet facing these rising international tensions. We're going to examine the roots of this conflict and what it means for the future of this incredible continent.
So let's rewind the clock all the way back to the beginning. Unlike any other continent, Antarctica had no indigenous population. So its discovery back in 1820 was a pivotal moment.
Right.
But that blank slate quickly became a source of international rivalry.
Of course, nations saw the potential, vast resources, strategic positioning, and that scramble to claim territory began. And this competition for control really underscored the need for a peaceful solution, which, as we know, wouldn't come easily.
Yeah, and then World War II brought a whole new layer of complexity to this situation. It doesn't immediately spring to mind as a battleground,
Right.
but Antarctica played a surprisingly crucial role.
Indeed. In 1941, a German raider seized Norwegian whaling ships and a staggering 20,000 tons of whale oil.
Wow.
Now, this was a key ingredient for explosives at the time.
Oh, wow. This incident really highlights how these global conflicts can have these unexpected consequences,
Yeah.
even in the most remote corners of the world.
Precisely. It raised alarms about Antarctica's vulnerability and the potential for militarization, concerns that echo even today.
Yeah, for sure. But amidst the tensions of the Cold War, a glimmer of hope emerged with what's called the International Geophysical Year,
The IGY.
or IGY, yeah, of 1957-58. Now, this was a remarkable moment in history.
It truly was. Scientists from 12 nations, including rivals like the US and the USSR, set aside their differences to collaborate on research in Antarctica. Imagine that in the heart of the Cold War, science became a unifying force.
Yeah. It's amazing. This spirit of cooperation set a powerful precedent and paved the way for this landmark agreement, the Antarctic Treaty of 1959.
Yes. The Antarctic Treaty is considered a cornerstone of Cold War diplomacy. It established Antarctica as a zone dedicated to peace and scientific exploration. It essentially declared the entire continent a giant no-war zone for the benefit of all humankind.
Okay, so let's delve into the core of this treaty.
Yeah.
What are the key provisions that everyone should know?
Okay.
Particularly, for those interested in international relations and global governance?
Right. The treaty rests on three main pillars.
Okay.
The first permits only peaceful use of Antarctica, no military bases, no maneuvers or weapons testing allowed. The second mandates scientific exchange. It requires nations to share their research plans, their personnel, and their findings.
Wow.
This promotes transparency and collaboration.
So Antarctica became this giant collaborative laboratory where everyone's sharing their discoveries for the greater good.
Exactly. And finally, there's a complete ban on nuclear explosions and radioactive waste disposal. This ensures the preservation of Antarctica's pristine environment and its vital role in global ecosystems.
So this treaty has been remarkably successful for over 6 decades. But as we know, the world is constantly changing. What are some of the challenges that are putting this peaceful balance at risk?
Well, as you might have guessed, climate change is a major factor. The melting ice is opening up access to potential resources, and that's reigniting competition among global powers.
So the very thing that makes Antarctica so valuable, for climate research, the ice is also the thing that's making it a target for resource exploitation. It's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Indeed. And this is where the treaty's resilience is being tested. The original signatories and even those who join later are facing pressure as the allure of untapped resources, oil, minerals, natural gas, and massive krill reserves grow stronger.
It sounds like a classic case of the tragedy of the commons. Everyone wants a piece of the pie, and that can lead to conflict.
That's a good way to put it. And we're already seeing countries pushing the boundaries of the treaty, testing the limits of international cooperation. Let's take a look at some specific examples to understand the complexities of this situation.
Absolutely. Who are the key players in this emerging power struggle for Antarctica? Well, one nation that's raising eyebrows is Iran. What's interesting is they're not even a signatory to the Antarctic Treaty.
Right.
Yet they've announced intentions to establish a permanent base and claim property rights.
It's a bold move that directly challenges the treaty's framework. Iran has even spoken of raising their flag and pursuing military and scientific activities, which are explicitly prohibited under the treaty.
So what's driving Iran's actions? Are they genuinely interested in scientific research? Or is there like a geopolitical strategy at play here?
It's likely a combination of factors. While they emphasize scientific goals, Iran might also be seeking to assert its presence on the global stage and potentially secure a share of future resources. Their actions could be a calculated move to gain leverage in international negotiations, even without being bound by the treaty.
Yeah, it adds another layer of complexity to the situation, that's for sure. And speaking of geopolitical maneuvering, how is Russia positioning itself in this new Antarctic landscape?
Well, Russia has always had a strong interest in Antarctica dating back to the Soviet era. Recently, they announced the discovery of significant oil and gas reserves
Oh,
in an area that falls within the UK's zone of interest. And they've made it clear they're prepared to exploit these resources, even if it means challenging the existing treaty framework.
that sounds like a recipe for conflict. Is there any precedent for this kind of resource grab in Antarctica?
Not within the framework of the treaty. This is precisely why Russia's actions are causing such concern. They're essentially testing the limits of the treaty and potentially setting a dangerous precedent for other nations to follow.
And what about China? They've been expanding their presence in Antarctica quite rapidly in recent years.
Yes, China's growing influence in Antarctica is certainly noteworthy. They've invested heavily in research infrastructure, sending their largest ever fleet in 2023
Wow.
to establish their fifth research station. While they emphasize scientific goals, there are concerns about the potential for these stations to be used for dual purposes, masking military activities under the guise of research.
Yeah. The rapid construction of their new Quinling station in particular has raised some red flags. It seems like a race for dominance is unfolding, with countries vying for control of this vast and resource-rich continent.
That's a valid concern. And amidst these rising tensions, it's essential to highlight the role of nations like India who are committed to upholding the principles of the Antarctic Treaty.
Okay, India has been a vocal advocate for peaceful cooperation and scientific collaboration in Antarctica. They even hosted the 46th Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting in 2024,
Right.
where 17 new management plans for Antarctic Specially Protected Areas, or ASPAs, were adopted.
Yes. These ASPAs are designated to protect areas of significant environmental, scientific, historical, or other values. India's active involvement in these initiatives demonstrates their commitment to preserving Antarctica's unique ecosystem and promoting international cooperation.
They're also planning a new research station, Maitree Second, to add to their existing stations, Maitree and Farati. It seems like they're taking a different approach, focusing on scientific advancement and sustainable development within the existing framework of the treaty.
It's an encouraging sign that some nations are still prioritizing collaboration over competition. India's leadership in this regard is commendable.
It's a lot to take in, and it really underscores how interconnected everything is. Climate change, resource competition, global power dynamics. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of these challenges.
It's true, but it's important to remember that Antarctica isn't just some abstract geopolitical chessboard. It's a real place,
Right.
an ecosystem of incredible beauty and scientific importance.
And its fate is intertwined with our own. What happens in Antarctica will affect us all, from the rising sea levels to the disruption of ocean currents.
That 4-kilometer thick ice sheet we discussed earlier holds a unique climate record spanning millennia. It's like a giant time capsule of Earth's history, and it's melting at an alarming rate.
It's scary.
As it melts, it releases vast amounts of fresh water into the ocean, which can have cascading effects on global weather patterns and coastal communities worldwide.
So the research being done in Antarctica isn't just about understanding the past. It's about predicting the future and preparing for the challenges that lie ahead.
Precisely, Antarctica plays a vital role in regulating global climate and ocean systems, and the scientific discoveries made there are crucial for understanding the complexities of climate change and its impact on our planet.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the importance of Antarctica, not just as a scientific frontier, but as a bellwether for the health of our planet.
It's a stark reminder that we're all connected, and that the choices we make today will have lasting consequences for generations to come.
Speaking of discoveries, Antarctica still holds so many mysteries, with vast areas still unexplored. Who knows what secrets lie hidden beneath the ice?
It's a tantalizing thought. From new species to geological wonders, Antarctica continues to surprise us. And it's not just about what's beneath the ice. The continent is also a prime location for astronomical research. The clear skies and lack of light pollution provide unparalleled views of the cosmos.
Now I have to ask, are there volcanoes in Antarctica? It seems like it's just endless ice and penguins.
You might be surprised to learn that Antarctica is home to several volcanoes, some of which are active. Mount Erebus, for instance, is one of the few volcanoes on Earth with a persistent lava lake.
Wow, that's incredible. So you've got this incredibly harsh environment, yet it's teeming with scientific wonders and potential resources. It's no wonder everyone's so interested.
And that's precisely why the future of Antarctica is so uncertain. Will international cooperation prevail as it has for the past 6 decades? Or will resource competition and geopolitical tensions lead to conflict jeopardizing not only the continent's fragile ecosystem, but also global stability?
That's the million-dollar question. What do you think?
Yeah, it really is a story of extremes. From the icy wilderness to the geopolitical maneuvering, the fragility of the ecosystem to the vast potential resources, it's a lot to ponder.
It is, and it underscores that Antarctica isn't just this distant land of ice and penguins.
Yeah.
It's a microcosm of the challenges facing our entire planet.
Exactly. And just like those early explorers who ventured into the unknown, we're navigating uncharted territory in many ways. Climate change, resource scarcity, geopolitical shifts. These are global issues converging on this one continent.
And that's what makes Antarctica so compelling. It's a living laboratory, not just for scientific research, but for diplomacy and international cooperation as well.
So for our listeners out there, particularly those who are fascinated by global affairs and the future of our planet, what are some key takeaways they should keep in mind as they think about Antarctica? Well, first and foremost, the Antarctic Treaty is a testament to the power of diplomacy. It's a remarkable achievement that has preserved peace and fostered scientific collaboration for over 6 decades. But as we've discussed, the treaty is facing unprecedented challenges.
And these challenges require our attention, whether it's understanding the intricacies of climate change, advocating for responsible resource management, or simply staying informed about the geopolitical dynamics at play. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of Antarctica.
Absolutely. The actions or inactions of nations and individuals alike will determine whether Antarctica remains a sanctuary for peace and science or becomes yet another battleground for resources and influence.
We've talked about the potential for conflict, but what about the potential for solutions? Is there hope for a future where international cooperation prevails? Where Antarctica's unique environment is protected and its scientific treasures are shared for the benefit of all humankind?
I believe there is. The Antarctic Treaty, despite its imperfections, provides a solid foundation for cooperation. The key lies in strengthening this framework, adapting it to meet the emerging challenges, and holding nations accountable for their actions.
It's a call to action, not just for world leaders and policymakers, but for each and every one of us. The future of Antarctica, like the future of our planet, is a shared responsibility.
Well said. And remember, the story of Antarctica is still being written. It's a narrative that's unfolding right now, and we all have the power to influence its direction.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this. What role will you play in the next chapter of this extraordinary story? Will you be an advocate for peace and scientific exploration? Will you raise your voice for the protection of this pristine environment?
Will you stand up for international cooperation and responsible stewardship of our planet's shared resources? The choice is yours.
And as the icy winds sweep across this vast and enigmatic continent, one thing is certain. The future of Antarctica is inextricably linked to the future of us all. Stay tuned, because the story of Antarctica is far from over.